Facebook, and on Twitter. So can you please either just raise your digital hand? If you don't raise your digital hand, I will call you, because I would like to hear from you guys tonight. I would like you to just lend your voice to this conversation. Let's have a conversation. So in a way, tonight is not a Bible study. I do have a presentation which I can make, and maybe I should start with that, and then we can have a conversation. If that's what you prefer, I can maybe start with my brief. It's a very brief presentation, and maybe I should start with that. But does anybody want to say something very quickly before I start on the very brief presentation on the Queen? I got this from the Gospel Coalition, and I think what they wrote was very, very nice, and I felt it would just good to just share some of that information you already have. Some of you have become royal experts in the last few days. So, ladies and gentlemen, who wants to go first? Who wants to talk? Who wants to respond? How has your week been, and how are you feeling about the Queen's passing, or about the new king, King Charles III? All right, over to you. So, ladies and gentlemen, on Zoom in particular, if you are on Twitter, if you are on Facebook, if you are on YouTube and you want to join us, please go to citychapel.org.uk, go to our website and click on the link to join that says School of Ministry join, and you will be taken to our Zoom page, and you can join. So please, if you're on and you want to be part of the conversation, please do that. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to ask the question. I'm going to make a presentation in a few minutes, very brief, but I just want to ask the question, how have you been, before I start my presentation? Anyone, please. You can unmute yourself and talk, or you can raise a digital hand and I can call you. Just respond, and so we can have this conversation. Ladies, or is everybody still in mourning, still in shock? Or please, I would like to hear from you. So yes, somebody has raised their hand.
Unfortunately, that someone is me.
No, it's okay. Some of us are more proactive to start a conversation. I could just imagine how you were when you were younger in class. So Sam, yes, you wanted to go first.
I was surprised at how I felt on
Okay.
hearing that the Queen had passed. If I'm
Surprised,
going to be
surprised in what sense?
well, I'm being brutally honest, I didn't particularly think I would care. In my mind, I'm not a royalist very much. And as somebody who likes reading history, I'm not a big fan of what has happened in the name of kings and queens in the past. However, I found myself strangely moved by the events, her life that she lived, the way that her silent, I don't know what to call it, a silent strength, if you call it that. Everybody talks about the Queen as though they know her personally, but the fact is, very few people actually knows very much about her beyond what we've been told. But I still found myself very, very moved by it. I was very aware of the fact that we are all living in a very significant moment in history. And the same way we can refer to the Edwardian period and the Victorian period, this is the Elizabethan period, and so it will be remembered in history. And I think I see her as, a mother, a sovereign who did her job very well. She did no harm, at least not to my knowledge, in her role as a queen. And I do feel that something very significant is passing with her. She's the last link to colonialism, or the old colonialism, if we can call it that. She was, but at the same time, I still think that there's a certain amount of prestige and dignity and, I don't know, royalty that almost goes with her. She's, in my eyes, almost the last true monarch, and the next monarch has to almost prove that he's worthy, if that makes any sense, of the legacy.
Wow. That's an interesting coming from a millennial like you, if I can use that word. Yes.
I only make millennial by one year. Just 20
it's from 1981. It's from 1981 to when was it?
81. I thought it was 83. Anyway, what
Okay, so Sam, that is your. I love your presentation, that you were strangely moved, and you didn't think you were going to be moved, but something about her life has kind of witnessed to you the soft power, soft authority that she's wielded. She's not in the news for saying the wrong thing or losing her temper or slipping up in some ways. You couldn't really quote the Queen in any respect, and she walked with dignity. I will just do a brief presentation, but thank you for saying that. And what you're saying about the fact that you were moved, surprised by your own response to the Queen's death is probably a way to describe how many people actually feel. So I'm going to ask if anybody wants to respond to what Samuel just said, or you want to add, you want to counter it, or you want to add to it, please unmute yourself and start speaking, because I just want this conversation to flow before I do my brief presentation on the Queen.
Yes, Pastor. This is Rachel.
Rachel.
Yes, sir.
Hi, Rachel.
Hello, Pastor. Yeah, I just want to say this about the Queen's passing. It was actually a shock, like Sam has said, because the last Tuesday before her death, she was seen performing that role,
Okay.
standing on her feet. She was not like on sick bed.
Yes.
She was not like lying down. And 2 days later, we heard that she passed. It was like, wow. I think for somebody at her age, maybe before she passed, she would be on the bed, something like that. But it just came quickly like that. So it was like a surprise, a shock to everybody.
So were you shocked yourself?
Yes, I was shocked.
How did you feel when you heard the news?
I feel, wow, so quick, just like that. I wasn't expecting it at that. I know she's old, she will go at the time, but seeing her on Tuesday and Wednesday, that happened. So it was like, wow, it was quick.
Wow.
To me, it was
anybody in your household or loved one that you lived with, did they respond as well to her passing?
Yeah. Everybody was like, oh, especially from my workplace, everybody was like, wow, that was quite shocking. It was quite special. And again, there's something I learned from her, about her life.
Yes.
She lived these years in service, and she lived it as if she was the kind of she's not God, I know that, but a kind of special being, because when she's passing through a lot of difficulty or a lot of time, situation, you never see it on her. She will never show it. Maybe when she's like down, or maybe there's all this paparazzi thing, all these media things around her family, she will not come out to say negative thing or say something bad about any situation. She will just calm down and hold her peace until everything will just go down and die down. So I think she's special. She was special during her lifetime.
Thank you, my sister Rachel. Thank you very much for adding your contributions towards that. I want to ask if anybody wants to respond to what our sister Rachel has just said. You want to add or subtract, or you want to counter what she said, how you felt when you heard about the Queen. Tonight is just a special conversation we're having about the Queen, and I feel that it's important that we do that. It's a new beginning. That's the theme of our Bible study, or our Wednesday evenings. But tonight we are deviating from that in the same theme of because it's a new beginning for the nation. It's a new beginning for all of us. But let's just have a conversation about her life. Anyone else wants to unmute themselves, please? Anyone else? Please don't be quiet. Don't be silent. I have too many silent. Where are my regulars? I'm going to start picking on people right now. So I'm going to start with someone who I know will talk at some stage, if she's not driving or something. Fiona, if you're there, please unmute
I
your
knew you were going to say my name.
Of course.
So I think I've been, it was very overwhelming, but also because I have MP friends that are still there in Parliament, there's a lot of things that don't get shared with the public.
Okay.
That, like conversations that are going on. In regards to the last comment that was made, there was a mantra that was said about the Queen, which was never complain, never explain. So that's why you would never see her coming out in the media saying anything untoward. I think that even though she was 96, it was a big shock to the nation, really, because even though you know she's older, you always assume she'll be a constant, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that was quite shocking. And I think some of the media outlets, they're very biased, for example, against Harry and Meghan, because they were holding hands today when they were walking into Westminster Hall. But I just think the long and short of it is they've lost their grandma, the nation's lost their queen. It is new beginnings. I think it's symbolic that there were two rainbows over the House of Windsor and Buckingham Palace. And we see in the Bible with Noah, there was a rainbow at the end of all the flood and everything. And that was a new beginning there as well. So I just think people need to pray for King Charles III and just carry on mourning respectfully, really. They would be my only comments.
Oh, thank you so much, Fiona. That was very nice of you. And thank you for your contribution to the conversation tonight. If you're logging on tonight, we're just having a conversation about the Queen, and that's all we're going to do today. I just felt to give some kind of brief introduction to her life. Just a few facts, I think about 6 or 7 facts. On September 8th, the coded message was delivered, London Bridge is down. This was the signal communicating the death of Queen Elizabeth II, the monarch of the United Kingdom, and 14 other Commonwealth realms. She was 96 years old when she passed. Another fact about the Queen was that months after becoming king in 1936, Edward VIII proposed marriage to Wallis Simpson, an American who had divorced her first husband and was seeking a divorce from her second husband. The marriage would have conflicted with Edward's status as symbolic head of the Church of England, because he was the king at the time, which at the time disapproved, that's the Church of England, of remarriage after divorce if a former spouse was still alive. So King Edward VIII famously chose his fiancée, or the lady he proposed to, Wallis Simpson, over the crown. That was a shock, and gave the crown to his brother, George VI, who was the father of Elizabeth II. When George VI died in 1952, he was succeeded by his elder daughter, Elizabeth II. So really, she was not supposed to be the queen, just based on the order, just like you have today, of succession. If Edward VIII had stayed as king, there's no way that Queen Elizabeth would have become king. It's just like, it's almost like Charles choosing not to become king and passing the crown over to William. Or maybe another way of putting it, if William was king, and so for some reason he passed the crown over to Harry, Harry then becomes king, and then his son Archie becomes king after him. So right now, there's no way Archie would become king, and that's the same position Queen Elizabeth was in. And many of us feel just on reflection that was just destiny. And sometimes destiny just changes things. Elizabeth first met her future husband and third cousin, Philip, when they were children. They met again when he was 18 and she was 13. And Elizabeth fell in love with Philip. They were secretly engaged in 1946 when Philip asked King George for his daughter's hand in marriage. The king granted his request, but delayed the formal engagement until Elizabeth's 21st birthday. The following April, Philip renounced his Greek and Danish titles. So Philip, the queen's husband who died a year before she passed away, he had to renounce his Greek and Danish titles and be converted to Anglicanism. So he had to become an Anglican from Greek Orthodox. That's just the covenants the crown has with the Church of England. And they were wedded in 1947 and were married nearly 74 years before Philip's death in 2021. They lived long. All of these guys lived long. The 3-hour coronation of Elizabeth, which we're going to see, the coronation is going to be done for Charles III soon, but they always do the funerals first, and then they will do the coronation. So even though he has been proclaimed king, his coronation is a grand affair. It's going to take over everything. Just like everything is being taken over by the funeral, the coronation is another grand affair. The crown, the most major event would be when Elizabeth's funeral takes place. That's when we're going to see all the heads of states come. Similarly, the coronation of King Charles III is going to be a very grand affair. The 3-hour coronation of Elizabeth included an extended communion service. As she entered the church, she was received with a reading of Psalm 122, 1-3, 6, and verse 6 and 7. She then made a humble adoration and kneeled on a footstool to make some short private prayers. The Archbishop of Canterbury presented her to the crown and then asked her a series of questions, including, will you, to the utmost of your power, maintain the laws of God and the true profession of the gospel? And these are going to be asked to Charles, who famously said he wants to be defender of the faiths. The covenants that the crown has with the Christian faith, with the Protestant faith, does not allow you to defend any other faith. You can't say, I want to defend Judaism. You have to be a Christian, basically. And the true profession of the gospel. Elizabeth then went to lay her right hand upon the Holy Gospel in the Great Bible to swear her oath. These are covenants that the forebears put into the crown. After she was presented with that Bible, and the Archbishop said, our gracious Queen, to keep your majesty ever mindful of the law and the gospel of God as the rule for the whole life and government of Christian princes. He then went on to say, we present you with this book, the most valuable thing that this world affords. Very interesting words that are chosen by these guys. The moderator then added, here is wisdom. This is the royal law. These are the living oracles of God. The service also included a reading from the Psalms, 1 Peter, and a reading from Matthew, as well as a recitation of the Gospel's creed. Elizabeth was then anointed with oil in the manner of 1 Kings. If you read 1 Kings 1, 39-40, that's when they anoint you with the Zadok, the priest, and Samuel anointed Saul. And the ceremony included several more prayers and confession. Anyone who is going to become monarch of the United Kingdom has to ascribe and confess and take an oath to defend the true gospel. Elizabeth was a private person, so it's not surprising she didn't often talk about her faith publicly. But there are times, such as the annual Queen's Christmas message, when the sincerity of her believe strong through. The Christmas message, which started as a radio broadcast before moving to television and then later to the internet, was frequently heard by millions of people across the globe. In the message given in 2000, Elizabeth said, "To many of us, our beliefs are of fundamental importance. For me, the teachings of Christ and my own personal accountability before God provide a framework in which I try to lead my life. I, like so many of you, have drawn great comfort in difficult times from Christ's words and example." So she's basically was saying that Christ was her model, Christ was her framework, Christ was her anchor. And that's why many people would say that she was a Christian. In her role as monarch, Elizabeth served as a titular head of the Church of England. As the prefix of the 39 articles added by the king in 1682, all these things are historical, states, the monarch is by title, the defender of the faiths. Hallelujah. He's the defender of the faith and the supreme governor of the church within these dominions. So he's defender of the faith and supreme governor of the church within these dominions. Today, the position is mostly symbolic, though Elizabeth was tasked with appointing bishops and bishops on the advice of the prime minister, who considers the names selected by church commission. Archbishops, bishops, and deans, and deacons, and parish priests all swear an oath of allegiance and pay homage to the sovereign, to the queen. And this is all written into the constitution and the framework of this nation. Elizabeth was a patron for more than 800 charities. She was considered one of the most charitable monarchs in the modern history, raising nearly $2 billion for the organization she supported. We sometimes think the world's problems are so big that we can do little to help, she said in 2016. On our own, we cannot end wars or wipe out injustice, but the cumulative impact of thousands of small acts of kindness can be bigger than we imagine. Christ's example helps me see the value of doing small things with great love, whoever does them, and whatever they themselves believe. So she's quoting again a reference to Jesus. Elizabeth was not only the longest lived and longest reigning monarch in British history, but she was also the oldest and longest serving head of
Is it just me, or do we not hear Pastor anymore?
No, we don't hear him anymore.
We can't hear him.
Okay, I was there fiddling with all my volume controls, wondering what happened.
Yeah.
Um,
I think he's muted.
He's possibly muted him. No, he hasn't. I can see his audio settings. Pastor, if you can hear us,
hear me now.
yes, we can hear you now.
I don't know what's going on with this. It's when last did you hear me? Was I on this page?
No,
Before,
two pages before, I think.
Oh, okay. 2 pages before. I don't know what's going on.
I'm not sure it was 2 page.
Two or one page.
Yeah, it was this one. You were talking about her being a patron.
This,
Okay. Anyway,
this one now.
so she raised 2 billion And she's quoting Christ's example, helps me to see the value of doing small things with great love, whoever does them, and whenever they themselves believe. So she's quoting Christ again, and they're basically saying she was a very generous, one of the most charitable monarchs in modern history. And I was also talking about the fact that she had to swear an oath to protect the Scottish church. And this is what even King Charles has to do. If some of us watched the meeting or the Ascension committee meeting that was televised, he had to sign a covenant that as king he will protect the interest of the Scottish church, and this is written into the constitution. It's written into covenant, into the crown. So any monarch has to protect the Protestant faith, and this is what the fathers of old did many years ago. So they tied the crown to Christianity. Her relationship with the Church of England was symbolized by a service of dedication in St. Giles Cathedral in Edinburgh, and that's where her coffin was a few days ago. 3 weeks after her coronation, the Church of England is a Presbyterian church and recognizes only Jesus Christ as head and king, or king and head of the church. Let me stop there. I'm just giving you some facts about the Queen, just to steer conversation, because I really want this to be a conversation, not a presentation. And I want to ask the question, do you think Queen Elizabeth was a Christian? And do you think King Charles is a Christian or will be a Christian king? I just want to throw that out there, and I just want to have conversation. Or what did you think about Queen Elizabeth's reign and her service as queen? I just want to throw that out there, and I just want to hear your feedback and your thoughts in this conversation. I want us to just have a conversation because this is the prevailing subject and we can't get away from it. And I don't want us to just bypass it. I want us to use this opportunity to have a conversation about the king that is coming on the throne, or is on the throne, and the queen that has just passed. And you guys have just mentioned some of the things that you felt when you heard about her death. Victoria, what did you want to say?
Yeah, this is Victoria's daughter.
Oh,
and,
okay.
Yes,
Hi.
what I'd like to say is, although I will say I don't know so much, God is the one that has all knowledge. But what I'd like to say is the Queen follows the church. But for Charles, I can't say for the Queen, she's a Christian. For Charles, I can say, I will not say he's a Christian, and I will not say he's not a Christian, but I'll say he will do all it takes to bring peace in the land.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Very much. I think that was Lola. So thank you very much.
I did tell her, sir. Thank you so much, Miss Cole. Thank you so much, sir.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Anybody want to respond to that? Tonia George, yes, please. Unmute yourself.
Good evening, Pastor.
Good evening.
So I was doing some research because we had the prayer meeting yesterday, and one of the things I came across was that in 1999, in the Trumpet paper, King Charles did say, if he were to take the throne, he would want to assume the official title not as defender of the faith, as generation of monarchs have done before him, but defender of faith, protecting all faiths in Britain.
Okay. So did you watch the Privy Council of the Ascension Committee that was televised?
To an extent.
So the two things that happened there that counter what you just said, because it's like saying, I want to buy a house without paying for it. And when it comes to the time for getting a house, the person who has the house says to you, look, you can't pick up this house without paying for it. So when it came to him being proclaimed as king, there are two things he had to do. He had to make a confession as the defender of the faith, because that is what is written into the constitution. And the second thing he had to do was to sign a document being the defender of the Scottish church, which is a Presbyterian church, which only recognizes Jesus Christ as its head. So you cannot do those two things and be the defender of the faith as is written into the oath. They will have to change everything, and they will have to change the constitution. And Charles has found out that he cannot do that. Anybody, please, can you just respond to this very interesting statement by my sister, Tonia George? So do you understand my response to you, Tonia?
I do, and I sincerely hope, you know, as generations and as time passed, he just respond or work accordingly as he did,
Okay.
as the vow he has made. But it's just something I came across, which kind of contradicted what you were just saying as well. You know, but I do agree with what you're saying, and I sincerely keep my fingers crossed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Before I move to Marsha, who just raised her hand, somebody is saying that they don't understand what I just said. So what is Dario George. Dario, what don't you understand, if you don't mind me, before I go to Marsha? You just wrote into the chat, I don't understand the response, Pastor. So what don't you understand? Is Dario there? Dario George? Is that Tonia?
I think that's my son, so I'll probably speak to him about that to bring clarity to what you said.
So what he can go is that he can go on YouTube and he can type in King Charles Ascension meeting or Ascension program, where King Charles had to sign. This was done some days ago, all in this last 1 week. And we had to, there were all the previous prime ministers, and there were loads of previous government officials and archbishops, previous archbishops there, as well as the current one. And you have to sign a document on behalf of the Scottish Church as defender of the Scottish Church, which is a Christian church. Now, the Scottish Church in history was very much against anything to do with the Catholics taking over, because at one stage, the Catholic Church tried to, or became, wanted to control England. And England subsequently kicked against the Catholic faith and the Catholic Church because it was being controlled by the Pope. And the popes had a lot of political power, which is the reason why King Henry VIII and the kings before him, or one of the kings before him and after him, locked into law that this nation is going to stay Protestant. We're going to stay to the true Christian faith, and we're not going to allow any Catholic influence or any other religion or any other king that is non-religious, that is not a Christian, to be on this throne. And they locked it into the covenant. So the Scottish Church, from which we had John Knox. John Knox was a prophetic preacher who preached against the kings or the Queen of Scots and challenged her with her desire to turn Scotland as well as parts of England to the Catholic Church. That is why the words are very clear and are very strong, that whoever becomes King of England, they will protect the Scottish Church, which is Presbyterian and which focuses on Jesus Christ as head of the church and not the Pope. So I need you to understand that Charles cannot just say, I want to be the defender of the faith. It is not possible. if he wants to be defender of faith, he cannot be king, because the covenant does not allow him to even defend Catholicism from the throne. The only faith that he can defend and protect is the Christian faith. And within Christian faith, it is the Anglican Church. And there are pros and cons towards that. Energy has raised his hand, whoever Energy is. I don't get your name, but if you understand your title is Energy, please unmute yourself, Energy.
I thought you remembered me by now. It's Nigel.
Oh, it's Nigel.
Yeah, how you doing?
Hi, Nigel.
Yeah, what I wanted to say was, I don't know what your question was exactly, but I think that Charles, just like the Queen, really is a figurehead, and it's Parliament that's really in control. And I think they have a form of godliness, but the Christianity they follow is not really the Christianity we follow. And I think that they have more of a form of Christianity or a form of godliness, but they're really controlled by Parliament. That's where the real power is, not necessarily the royal family, but they're like front heads or figureheads, and used in certain ways, because the speeches that even the Queen makes given by the government for her to say. So I think we need to look a bit deeper. I don't think they're really in control.
So I'm not here to defend their structures. I'm explaining their structures, and I'm explaining the history or some of the history behind it, so that I'm also responding to the question or the statement that our sister said, that King Charles had previously quoted that he wants to be the defender of the faiths. So even if King Charles III is a nominal Christian, let's even say he's not born again and he just goes to church.
Yeah.
The system that he's ascribing to does not allow him to bring in any other religion to the throne. That is basically all I'm saying.
Okay.
So I'm not in any way what's I put there? I'm not in any way defending defending the system. I'm just basically saying this is the historic structures behind the system and the reasons why they did that.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, even if he say he's a Christian then, and he doesn't deviate out of Christianity on the throne, Parliament still dictates what religion or what really happens in the country. You see, I just don't think that they have the influence and power anymore to really affect our everyday lives and affect law.
I'm talking about the crown. I'm not talking about government. So
yeah,
I know that there's linkages, but I'm basically saying that you can have Rishi Sunak. Sunak could have become prime minister as a Hindu, but Rishi cannot become king as a Hindu. That's the point I'm making.
Okay,
so,
okay.
You understand? So that's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So Marsha had raised her hand before Fiona unmutes herself. Marsha, you go first, and then Fiona come after me. Come after that.
Pastor Jay, something that you've just said there, because there was many different things that I wanted to jump onto, but the last thing that you've just said brings something else back to mind. So this whole thing where you just said Rishi Sunak, being a Hindu, could not be king. In something that I've read with regards to the Queen and her relationship with Prince Philip and everything, totally highlights what you just said. Prince Philip had to, if I remember rightly, had to actually become a Christian.
Yes.
In order to be married to the Queen, in order to be her, what would they call it?
He had to become an Anglican.
Yes. So it wasn't just a case of he came as he was. He had to confess faith. He had to accept and confess faith in God to become her queen, her husband. In the same way, going back to what the young lady was saying. In fact, I'll go back to your question first, because your first question was, do you believe the Queen was a Christian? Yes, I do. I don't just believe she was a Christian, I believe she was a born-again Christian. Do I believe King Charles is a Christian? He goes to church. I don't believe he is a born-again Christian, but he goes to church. But then many people go to church, but they're not true Christians.
Yeah.
What the young lady said, was it Tonya, her name was? She was right, because I remembered that. Funny, that came straight to my mind because I watched the Ascension on Saturday morning, and that came right back to my, was it Saturday morning or Sunday morning? Saturday morning. That came right back to my mind, the comment that he had made. He did say he wants to be the defender of all faiths.
Yes.
And so when that was he was having to make those declarations and everything, that jumped into my head, and I was like, wow, you have to drop all that you had said in the past, because otherwise you cannot go any further.
Yes.
So far and no further. So it's either all or nothing. And so, yeah. So I'm saying that I agree with what you said there. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay. I met King Charles III as Prince Charles once or twice before. And I met Prince Andrew. When some of us met Prince Charles, we had this conversation with him in private, and we actually asked him, we said, this statement that you made about being the defender of the faith, he said, when we presented him, he said that he was misquoted. So we said that it would be good for him to actually correct that quote. And he said it's something that he would look into. Okay, but we didn't hear anything. We didn't hear anything after that. It was a private meeting that we had, and it's on record, so I can say it here because there's nothing slanderous in what I'm saying. It's a factual statement. So this question of King Charles III in his previous titles as Prince of Wales had been on record in saying that he wants to be the defender of the faith. But the covenants in the land for the sovereign, for the crown, does not allow you to be able to confess that and decree. You have to confess that you'll be the defender of the Scottish Church, which is on paper Christian, and you will be defender of the faith as the sovereign, which is for the Anglican Church. And that is how England has protected its church. So even if Philip was a Christian, a born-again Christian, in the Greek Orthodox, he had to become a Christian in the uniform of Anglicanism.
Yes.
To marry into the Windsor family. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
So Fiona, you next. Thank you very much, Marsha.
Yes, sorry. I just wanted to agree with everything you're saying. He actually made a suggestion that if he ascended to the throne, he wanted to change the title to the Defender of Faith, not the Defender of the Faith. So he was just removing the word "the," but you can't do that, as you've clearly pointed out. You're very correct, but that is what the suggestion was. Can it be Defender of Faith? So then it can cover the fact that Britain's changing and there's lots of different faiths here. And the answer was no. So yeah, that wasn't changed. He did say Defender of the Faith in his confession. So yes.
Okay, thank you very much, Fiona. Thank you for that addition. And then Victoria has raised her hand again. And so Victoria, could you speak, please?
Yeah, this is Christiana Cole.
Hi,
Victoria's
Christiana.
his daughter. Yeah, so from everything and the conversation, because I'm having to pick along, what I see there is that Charles must have seen his mom's reign very peaceful, very nice, and it was working for the UK. So he coming and having the grief of his losing his mom and having to make a speech, probably that took him by surprise. And then he had to, maybe what he said, he meant it another way. So I don't think people should castigate him because he was the one in grief. We are seeing it from another view, and we are right. We are not the ones that lost a close person. So I don't feel it should be held against him, especially because the Lord always said we should not judge others, so we will not be judged. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Victoria or Christiana. Thank you very much for that contribution. I think we are probably analyzing what he said rather than judging him. But what you say in public, people can discern and use to have an opinion about you. So I think this historic statement that he has made has somewhat been corrected, at least in the last week in which he has become king. He has publicly stated, as somebody has rightly said in his public address, that he is going to be the defender of the faith, that he's going to be, is going to take the church and protect the church. He's going to take responsibility for the church. And
okay,
he has,
okay,
sorry?
Pastor.
Okay,
Pastor.
So he has said all these things, and like you rightly said, we should not hold him to what he said in the past. But I have to answer the question that was raised by a wonderful lady, Tonia George, because this is a conversation, as it were. I also want to mention a few things, that the words that are being used to describe Queen Elizabeth II are devotion. She was very devoted. She was consistent. She was virtuous. She was dedicated. She was integrous. She was generous. She was diligent. So there are many things that they used to describe her, which are an extension of the fruit of the Spirit, of being when somebody is a Christian, the way you live your life, and your personality, not your personality type, but the extension of your personality and what your personality does in any position is an indication of your inner strength, of your inner person. And for our observation for 70 years, we never really saw the Queen angry, lash out, shout at anybody. There's some things that were quoted behind the scenes that we never really were able to say the Queen said this. And I believe that the way she conducted herself is worthy of emulation of anybody, Christian or not Christian, for any position of service in a company, in a church, in a project, in a family. What and how the Queen devoted herself to her task, to her role, and even to her motherhood. Now, I'm not saying that she was not flawed, and I'm not saying that she was perfect, but the level of consistency, the way the world is mourning her, and kings and leaders, politicians, previous presidents and prime ministers, everybody has something wonderful to say about the Queen. And it is incredible that she started this when she was quite young. I think 24, 25 was when she started to rule and to reign. And for somebody that young, and for somebody that exposed to all the pressure, she was able to, had to relate to 14 presidents, I believe, or maybe it was 16 prime ministers. And these are people that were much older than her at the beginning, before she became older than all of them towards the end. It's just incredible. And I think her track record is exemplary. She is a shining example of a dedicated servant to her role. Those are my own observations. And I honestly believe, based on private records and private communication that I have, as well as public records, that the Queen professed her faith in Jesus Christ. Now, she's going to stand before God, and he is going to judge her based on his perspective of her performance. And so I want to say, in terms of her person, in terms of her performance, I would give the Queen an A star for the way she lived her dedicated life. That is just me. I don't know about you, but you may want to comment, or you may want to agree or disagree with me as to what you would give the Queen in terms of her A star. Now, by contrast, let me just mention two things. In 1 week, King Charles, and I'm sorry, I'm just saying this not because I want to. It's something that we need to pray for him. In 1 week, King Charles has verbally or in body language communicated some negatives or the pressure he's under. Now, we need to understand that he's just lost his mother. But the Queen went through what he went through as well. You know, she lost her father and she had to be rushed from Africa. In fact, she became queen in Africa. That's very interesting. You know, and she had to go through all this process that King Charles is going through now. And we didn't see her lose her cool. In 1 week, King Charles has lost his cool twice. So we need to pray for him, that he has just started within days. You know, what of months, what of years? We don't want to be hearing all kinds of things from him. We would love him to continue the legacy of his mother. And we would love him. So that's one of the things that we need to pray for him, because his temperament and his personality type is different from Elizabeth II. And he's going, somebody said that Camilla is a calming effect on King Charles, and she's going to do a fantastic job with him. Now, let me also mention, if anybody in the royal family currently is going to get an A or an A star, I would say it's Camilla. And you may be wondering why. Camilla came after the shadow of Diana, and the whole nation hated her and hated her guts. Camilla came in quietly, and Camilla became Charles' wife. We did not hear any quote from Camilla. She's just gotten on with the task of being his consort. All through, you can't quote Camilla. She has just been there. She's there, but not there. There's no, you can't, she's not put a foot wrong. And I feel that if anybody is going to get an A star for delivery of keeping your mouth shut, of serving the position and not pushing your own agenda, we need to give Camilla a very high mark. I would like you to comment on that. And Fiona, you've put up your hand again.
Yes. Okay. So with Camilla, I honestly feel that the Queen, in her infinite wisdom, kind of laid that to rest before she passed, because the Queen said she is going to be the Queen consort. That's what you will refer to her as. So then that silenced the people that were very frustrated. This is the woman that was the third person in their marriage. Like that, there's no issue there between Diana and Camilla, because the Queen's already put paid to that. So, but I do think that there are a lot of people, it's just not out there on the press, that have very dissenting voices about Camilla. And so, as my mum would say, sometimes silence is the best answer for a fool. Or empty barrels make the loudest noise, so you just don't respond to them.
So if I was going to compare, so, and please, all of you pro-Meghan people, please bear with me with what I'm about to say next. Just what you just said is very, very true, because Camilla has not given that baying mob, she's not giving them substance to attack her with. She's just gotten on with the job. And compared to Meghan, who also has a whole constitution that are against her, she's constantly giving them quotes and things she's saying in the press with which to attack her. Now, you may say that their roles are different, but I feel for a couple who fled to America to get away from media and from the attacks of the paparazzi, they are actually given more further and substance and excuses for the media to keep attacking them. We don't hear Camilla having a podcast. We don't hear Camilla having doing an interview. We don't hear Camilla saying things. So anything she's doing, she's serving the crown. She's serving the monarchy. She's serving the nation quietly and getting on with it. And I'm just raising her as out of all the royal family. I think she's one person that has borne a lot and said very little to counter all the negatives that have come against her. And for that, I think she deserves a clap and affirmation. I don't know what anybody has to say, since we're talking about the Queen and the royal family. If you disagree with me, please. That's why we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Let's take talking and more listening should be done. Yes, she is in the background and quiet. That's why. Yes. So I just wanted to just say that, and I just felt we should have a conversation about the Queen and talk about this very, very emotive matter, because it's in our face. And we're going to be listening to more and more about this whole thing over the next few days. The Queen is going to be buried on Monday. That's going to be a very, very heavy day. And she is in, she's lying in state at the moment. So thousands and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands are going to file past before Monday. And so we just need to pray. We need to be reflective. We need to pray for the royal family. Pray for Harry, pray for William, pray for Meghan, pray for Kate, pray for King Charles and the Queen Consort Camilla. Pray for all of the Queen's children. The I've forgotten that. The Princess Royal has been exemplary in her service in this whole funeral period. Just went with the coffin everywhere, just served, was quiet, and did everything. Andrew as well, and as well as the last one. I keep on forgetting the last one's name. So please forgive me. Edward, yes, thank you, Edward. You know, we just need to pray for every single one of them and hope that we don't get any negative press. I feel that the monarchy is going to come under trial a year from now or less, when people have gotten over the passing of the Queen. They're going to look at what is there, and if Charles is putting any foot wrong, they're going to say, why are we putting up with this? You know, away with this. So anyone that is anti-monarchy, after they cannot talk right now. Ireland have said, I think Scotland have said, they're not going to push for an independent Scotland in the immediate future. Northern Ireland have said the same thing in respect to the Queen. But once that period is over, 1 year from now or less, I can tell you, I think we're going to have a whole uprising against the monarchy, or the role of the monarchy in some of the Commonwealth nations, where the crown is still part of the fabric. Any last words before we close? Any last words before we close? Because this is, I just wanted us to have this conversation. I wanted us to discuss this in the context of the Queen. I also wanted to lay it on the record that I believe and I think that she served very well, and that she deserves an A-star for her service. I believe she was a Christian. I believe she professed Christ as her Lord and Savior. And I believe that she served her generation 70 years, and there's so many signs at her death that are just so very, very interesting. 70 years after, 70 is a very powerful number in biblical reflection as well as typology. She passed the baton on from one Elizabeth to another Elizabeth before she passed. 2 days before she passed, she was on her feet, making Elizabeth our new prime minister. When she passed, there are reports of multiple rainbows everywhere. There was a rainbow over the Balmoral where she passed, and there was another rainbow over, I believe it was Windsor Castle. Just very interesting signs all at the same time. So I just think that there's a lot going on in our nation, and this is a new beginning for United Kingdom. And let us pray that God's agenda for this nation will be fulfilled in Jesus' name. Amen. Before I hand back over to Sam, Sam, any questions or statements, or Esther, anything from the other platforms that we've missed? Please tell me now before I sign off.
Nothing, sir.
Okay.
There's just one or two comments agreeing with what you said last, which is the uprising coming. Really, I said I feel as though it's the past, that she was the last true monarch in the beginning, and she ties a certain generation of people who believed in monarchy, who believed in, the UK, who believed in Christianity. She's almost a symbol for the passing of that generation. So it will be very interesting to see what comes next.
Yeah. I think the only way in which the monarchy can survive, if anyone is just asking me for my own opinion, I think they should do a deal with Meghan and Harry, and I think they should do a deal with William and Kate, and they should get these people to be modern. They should pay for Harry and Meghan, pull them back in, whether they only want to work one day for the royal family. Just all these things that Meghan and Harry want to do with the stars, with Jay-Z, with opera, with Hollywood. They should brand the strong royals to make the royal family relevant to a whole new generation by Twitter, by Facebook, by YouTube, by videos. The royal family and everybody involved has to engage in a way that adds value to the royal family and give the people the soft drama that they need. Okay, that is my own, because the younger generation, they need to feel and touch the younger royals, and this whole drama about Meghan and Harry is not going to help. It's not going to help the royal family, because my daughter's generation, many of them, they connect with Meghan and they are anti-establishment. Meghan was very, very welcomed on the Commonwealth tour that they did, and I feel that with a black mom, if they can spin it well, she will connect with the whole of the ethnic world, the Asian and African world. Connect with that and put the spin on it, and hire the better PR minds, and get Meghan and Harry working for the royal family, not against it. That was, I feel, they've got enough money to pay for whatever they need to pay for, and make them connect with my daughter's generation. That is the only way I feel the monarchy is going to be relevant. But Charles is 73. My daughter is not going to relate to a 70. How old is he? 73? Is he 73? I think Charles is 73, right?
He is.
Yeah. So my daughter is not going to relate to 7. She can relate to Meghan, You know, she can relate to Harry. I think, you know, because they're in their 30s. Oh, is it 40 now? She's 40, sorry. But they can relate to her anyway. So that's my feel. You know, that's my feel. So they should spend the money. All this money they don't want to spend with Harry. You sit down, have a family meeting, and just agree that Harry and Meghan, we are going to pay you. We will give you all the money that you don't want. So you don't lose the brand. You don't lose the brand. Okay.
That could kick off a whole debate, Pastor.
I know, but I'm just throwing it out.
Those two have done a lot of damage to the monarchy, in my opinion.
But this is the age of drama. This is the age of reality TV.
They're supposed to be above that. The proximity breeds contempt. And that's part of the reason why the Queen was so revered. She kept her distance from people. It was a respectable distance. If you got Harry and Meghan running around saying all this stuff about the monarchy, and then they bring them back in, I understand what you're saying. I think that they could. I really do think that if they do it properly, those two could be great ambassadors for the royal family. I just think they've already done too much damage. They've already lost the public.
Well, if King Charles, let's just say King Charles, makes a grand gesture of forgiveness, forgiving Harry as his son, you know, does one interview, because the Queen, go to the records. The Queen had her own reality TV when she was younger. She brought BBC and the cameras into her working life so the people could feel her, could have a sense. She did it. She was the first to send a tweet. She was the first to send to speak on the phone. She was current. She was young, and that's why she carried the whole generation. She was 25. So when you are young and you are relevant, everybody can connect to you. That's why that was part of her. So when you are younger, there's some things you can do. So it's just it is measured exposure. The Queen exposed herself. She had cameras come into Buckingham Palace to follow her around as she welcomed Margaret Thatcher, as she welcomed go through the records.
And it was a good idea for them to do that, but she cancelled it because she felt that it was a bit too intrusive. Anyway, I'm not saying you're wrong. I think you're right in that they need to bring the media in. I think the only controversial bits for me was I think Meghan is always going to be a controversial subject for a lot of people. I think a lot of people liked her just because she was black. I don't think that's enough. I don't think she's conducted herself in a way that. Anyway, let me stop before everyone hates me for saying it.
Yes, but I think if King Charles forgives Harry and Meghan, he is going to buy himself a lot of currency with the young people.
That is true. That is true.
You know, and pull them in and work out a deal. I'm telling you, that is the best thing to do.
Yeah.
You know, this fight and Harry's memoirs are going to come out in November. It's going to do more damage, and the fight is going to go on. And there's no Queen to be over and above all this nonsense. So they better sort it out very quickly. If they hire me,
it'll be interesting. It's better to have them in the house.
Advisor, I will give them this advice, and they'll pay me millions for it. I'm telling you,
it's better to have them in the house than outside the house falling trouble.
Precisely.
So.
I agree.
Precisely. Sorry, Dami, you were saying?
No, I was just agreeing that it's better to have them in the house than outside the house. And you can tell just by 4 of them walking out of Windsor the other day, you can tell that the public would want that.
Yes.
Or majority of the public would be against.
Do you realize that just those 4 walking out moved King Charles' proclamation as king off the front pages?
Yeah, it did.
All of media focused on those Fab 4. They call them the Fab 4. Okay. All right.
Yeah, it did. And do you know, I think Prince Charles is trying, because if he didn't ask William, from what he said in the media, if he didn't ask William to ask his brother to come out with him, it wouldn't have happened. So I think everything does fall on Prince Charles to act in a way that's suitable for the royal family, because to be honest, the royal family are becoming very, very irrelevant at the moment, and it's just going to fizzle out. And the generation to come, they're not interested in the royal family. Precisely. And they need to find something that makes them stand out. And I don't know what it is, but I think just the Queen going, a lot of people just abolish the royal family.
Exactly. Yeah, it's good.
There's no point of
There's
anymore.
going to be a backlash. You know,
Yeah, definitely.
There is going to be a just trust me on that. There's going to be a backlash. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, any last words? I've thrown Megan in, and everybody's talking now.
Yeah, what I want to say was, what do you say about all the negative stuff that's coming to light? Because in the end of the day, we're all Black people, and a lot of Blacks, especially Africans, are sharing all sorts of videos of the atrocities that was done by or under the royal family, like colonialism, his calls for reparations, things like that. So what do you say about the negativity that's coming to light? Because every time somebody dies, there's always information about things they've done. I mean, apparently all the wealth of the royal family is taken from Africa, the crown jewels.
Yeah, so see, that's what I'm saying, is that when a person's personality and aura is over and above the negatives, people tend to overlook it. But now she's gone, all of these things are going to begin to come back. So I'm agreeing with you, my brother, that there's going to be a whole backlash against the monarchy, because nobody has that level of grace and virtue that is on the throne like the Queen. It's going to take King Charles III a lot to reconnect and hold together. In fact, there's already been muted that Australia, maybe Canada, maybe plus or minus Canada, and some other nations maybe are going to pull out of the Commonwealth, you know, because they related more with the Queen than with anybody else. So I'm agreeing with you.
Well, yeah, some Black leaders are saying that they want Charles to give reparations and get us out of colonialism that the Queen got us into. So there's things that need to be repaired and damaged, and Blacks are still at the bottom. While she's being celebrated, we're still suffering, you see, and that can't be overlooked. The damage was caused. I mean, the things that they've done in Africa, went into Africa and did, how they terrorized so many countries there, you know, while there was committing colonialism, those things, they're on video and it's been circulated everywhere.
Can I just say,
that's a lot of damage that was caused.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, you want to add to the conversation, Dami?
Yeah, I just wanted to say something, because I have seen a lot of people commenting on the fact that the royal family have jewels and they have, you know, all of these things that belong to Africa. But the matter of fact is, some people might think I'm weird saying this, but actually, I think leave it where it is. Why? Because if it goes back, Africa is not going to benefit from it. Like, everyone's like, give it back. If it goes back, what's going to happen? It's probably just going to be sold back to them one way or the other. There's too much corruption in Africa. And I just think Black people have a history. There's so many things that that's happened to our ancestors, but it's time to move away from that and actually just heal as a community and start building things with the present people here, working together, you know, certain things that we have to do as Africans, rather than holding other people responsible for where we are. Why don't we just try to build in our presence, rather than, why you need to pay for this, you need to say sorry for that. Personally, I feel like time for us to heal as a community.
They are responsible for a lot of poverty, and we can't move if we try to rebuild and they keep pulling us down all the time. You know, they have a lot of Africa's wealth that can empower Africa. And we can't increase our economy without your natural wealth and resources.
Can I ask you a question, my brother? If King Charles ordered for £1 trillion to be paid back as reparations, 1 trillion, what would you do with the money?
But what I would do
as Africa.
I don't know what they would do. All I know is that, you know, they've been so destroyed in so many different ways. That
Yes.
yes, maybe
So,
even if they had the money, they would not know what to do with it. Because of the we just can't be naive and just not see the damage that they have caused. To our people.
Let us just say they actually put up their hand and say we caused this, and here is 1 trillion in reparations. What would Africa do, and how would you go about that? Because that in itself is going to throw up a lot of debate. Who do you give it to? Who has the capacity to handle that in Africa and disperse it or dispense it equitably? It's a big question. So on one hand, we can accuse the West of doing what they've done in the past. However, even if they are found guilty or they agree to their guilt, what will they do? What would Africa do with one? I'm just throwing out the figure 1 trillion.
But besides the wealth, a lot of our money is going to European countries like France. So if those kind of things were stopped, then Africa would have more money to be able to help their own people. But all their wealth and all their resources is going out to the rest of the world. So they're not able to benefit from their own resources and from their own wealth because of all the sanctions and the control and what the West does to them and how they come in and take. And take from them.
I know this is not the day to discuss this because we've moved into a different subject. But let me just say that I'm willing for us to have a conversation about reparations. And one of the things I would say to Africa is that Africa has the capacity to galvanize itself, unite around itself, and do trade with itself and cut off the West. There's nothing stopping Africa from doing that, in my humble opinion. So the only thing that is stopping Africa from doing that at this point in time is number 1, corruption and bad leadership. But if the leaders of our nations got together and said enough is enough with the West, just like Putin has closed down the supply to Europe, okay, because he's waging a war, we can stop our supplies and say we're going to sell to each other. Because we have 52 sovereign states, or 54 sovereign states, if not 55.
My last statement is we did have some good African leaders very recently that stood for the people and tried to protect the people from a certain thing, and they were all just taken out one by one. 5 particular presidents in Africa. So that shows that there was still some good leadership there that tried to protect the people from what was happening in the last 2 years. And they were all taken out one by one. So who you have left now probably is corrupt, the ones that agree with the West.
So my brother, like I said, we can't have this conversation now because we will continue to have this conversation. But
it's just to bring balance, though, to bring balance to.
Now I'm giving balance. I'm coming to your side of the argument. I'm saying that Africa is in the state it is because it has not risen to address 2 key things: corruption and leadership. If leaders arise, we can't keep on saying that they're killing us. Take out our 5 leaders, we replace them with 20. Why don't we have 25 Nelson Mandelas? Galvanizing Africa. We have 1 billion black people on the planet. So
just like that statement someone just said about the 2015, Africa is just serving the West now. We're still slaves. Nothing's changed.
Can I think, Pastor, I've been biting my tongue and sitting here like a coiled spring, and I'm not going to say what I wanted to say because I think this is going to move us way too far away from the conversation. I do think that your idea to have a discussion about this should be taken forward, because I think there's a lot here that needs to be unpacked, and I keep hearing this. Roger and I were talking before we started here, and I said that if you go online, you find that the praise for the Queen is not universal. And this is exactly what I was talking about. That said, I think that the majority of us on this call tend to be from African origin. A number of people have sympathies with what's been said, but I think there is another side to this which we actually need to delve into, and probably with the word of God as well, not just the emotions.
I totally agree
I'll
with
stop
you.
there.
So I'm willing to have that conversation energy. Honestly,
Okay.
and so let's agree that we will have this conversation with time, just like we said we'll have conversation about prosperity gospel, and we did. So we will have a conversation about this whole thing about reparations and slavery and the legacy of slavery and the condition of the Black race. I want us to have that conversation. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay. So over to you, Samuel, please.
Okay. Yeah, energy. I mean, you really lived up to your title there. You really brought it at the end. So thank you, thanks everybody for your contributions to this evening. It has been much appreciated, and I think it is a good thing for us to just stop and reflect on the events that have taken place over the last few days and that will continue to take place. But speaking of reparations and money, um, I've been trying to find a segue into this. We, as you may know, City Chapel has moved premises, so we have been nomadic for a long time, living in our tents, going from community centers to hotels to schools for a while. But City Chapel has now finally, by the grace of God, we've got a building of our own where we shall be staying put. And there's a lot that needs to go into that. So if you are enjoying the School of Ministry, if you like what we're doing, I'm going to go beyond just saying a financial donation. I mean, of course, we would, if you've been on this platform, you know that we would always welcome your financial donations. And if that's a one-off gift, that would be amazing. If you would prefer to give by direct debit, which is what we would prefer, that would also be absolutely amazing. If you go to the City Chapel website, www.citychapel.org.uk, and you go to our giving page, you'll be able to fill out a form for gift aid, which will add 25% to whatever you donate to the church, or to the ministry. So yeah, please do support our move into the new building. We're trying to raise funds. We need to get chairs. It's like moving into a new house. We need everything. So whatever you can do to help us with that as a special gift, that is much, much appreciated. We're on several social media sites. I've already mentioned www.citychapel.org.uk, which is our main website. You'll find a lot of information there regarding the ministry and what we do. We're on YouTube, City Chapel UK on YouTube. Almost everything that we do is broadcast on YouTube. But most importantly for School of Ministry, you will find all of the sessions from foundation class until these ones recorded, all the ones which we have recorded. There are some that have been in-house sessions where we have discussed things that we didn't want to put online, but the vast majority of the content, 95% of it, will be online. So please do go check it out. We are also on Instagram, City Chapel, and Facebook, City Chapel London. The final thing to mention is the City Chapel annual survey. So if you're not using your phone, you can use that. You can basically scan this QR code in the top left-hand corner of your screen. And if you are on your phone, well, there's a link which I'll be putting into the chat very soon. We would love to hear from you. This is not a short survey. Well, if you're not a member of City Chapel as a church, but you're part of the ministry, in that you're part of School of Ministry and other things that we do, we will still like to hear from you. And if you are not a Sunday attender, then it's a much, much shorter survey. But please do click on the link when I post it into the chat. We would love to hear from you as we begin to chart our way into understanding what the future looks like and what our members, our affiliates, our subscribers, and anybody who is part of City Chapel in any way, shape, or form. So please, please, please spend 5 minutes before you go to bed tonight just to fill in that survey. We'd love to hear from you, and your input will be taken seriously, and it will help us to shape how we move forward as a ministry. God bless you.
Wow, thank you for that. Was a long announcement, but thank you for going through everything tonight and presenting this. God bless you guys. We start again next week with new beginnings, and we're going to, this is just a precursor into our Bible study. We're going to go through the whole Bible, and we're going to journey through the Bible from Genesis to Revelation together. So what we're doing right now is just a precursor and getting ourselves ready. We're just having these conversations, and we just want to get ourselves back because I've been away for a while, and we want to get everybody back into the rhythm of Wednesdays, and then we're going to start in a week or two from now. So God bless you and thank you, and please invite somebody on next week because we're going to do some Bible study next week. In the meantime, pray for the nation, pray for our leaders, and the Lord bless you. Pray for our African leaders, our Caribbean leaders. Pray for those from any nation that you are from, whether you are Asian or you are white or you are Caucasian or you are African. If you are Hispanic, whatever your nation, please pray for your leaders. And if you live in the UK and you're a UK citizen, pray for your leaders here. And I believe the Lord will help us. It's a biblical injunction for us. Have a good week, guys. And it's going to be full on the Queen. So you can't get rid of her that so quickly. She's going to be on your TV screens for the next several days until she is buried on Monday. Have a wonderful weekend or week ahead and weekend ahead. God bless you. See you on you guys on Zoom, you guys on Facebook, you guys on YouTube. God bless you. And those of you on Twitter.